Welcome to this week's episode of Drawing on Experience by Noname Porter-McShirley, produced by Riffle Publishing Incorporated. Hello everyone. This week I have a story for you that involves penguins, marshmallows, and dinner plans. No, I was not handing out treats at the zoo, nor roasting birds in an igloo. I was working in a plastic bottle factory. This particular day, I was assigned to boxing enema bottles. The intended use of such bottles is irrelevant to this story, though I do find it amazing that they seem to be a pretty common thing I'd never needed to know about. Anyway, boxing the bottles was super tedious for multiple reasons. The bottles are designed to be very thin and lightweight, so that they can be easily squeezed with enough force to quickly eject the entire liquid contents. Being so lightweight means that they frequently wobble and topple as the machinery shifts them from the mold to the conveyor belt, or as the belt moves along through various automated finishing and inspection processes. This particular machine's conveyor setup really needed some work that wasn't being done, because so many bottles were falling off the line, or worse, falling over and jamming up the line, that we were making more scrap than finished goods. Of course, so very little plastic was used in each bottle that management wasn't too concerned with the waste. But constantly getting up from the boxing station to unjam the line was a real pain for us workers. And even if the conveyor setup had worked properly, the boxing job was extremely tedious in itself. You see, because the bottles are so soft and thin, they would be ruined if they were just thrown or jammed into boxes. So we had to hand stack them, upright, in a honeycomb pattern, 5 layers deep per box. That's nearly 1,000 bottles per box. And we had to work as fast as possible to keep up with how fast they were coming down the conveyor belt from the production press. Now hang on, because I want to explain something, and then I'll get to the end of that story with the penguins and the marshmallows. When people find work to be tedious and boring, that is generally due to a combination of 2 factors. The task requires certain muscles and tendons to perform a certain way so often, so fast, and so long that we're in danger of being damaged. And simultaneously, the task does not require enough thought to keep our minds fully engaged. There are a few coping tactics you may be familiar with. Number 1. Some people seem to get into some kind of mental, physical groove where they are able to kind of sleepwalk through such a work shift and accept it as just the way life is. Work is a huge chunk of your life, and shutting your mind off for it is a huge waste of opportunity. Number 2. Another tactic that employees might get away with at some jobs is to sneakily wear an earbud and prop their phone where they can see it while they work, so they can keep their mind entertained while their hands do tedious tasks. But this can lead to real problems. When they least expect it, something has happened or not happened that they should have noticed and didn't. Maybe the conveyor jams and 5 minutes go by before they bother to get away from their phone to fix it. Or maybe the other end of the press is flashing an alarm, but they don't see it because they aren't looking around. Maybe they miss an opportunity to help someone who would have praised them, or to meet someone who could have been meaningful. Both of tactics 1 and 2 are pretty sure to prevent you from getting any kind of job promotion. They also rob you of job satisfaction. You have no reason to feel good about your time at work, you just manage to get through it. Tactic 3. For many people, it's easy to get into a very negative thought pattern with notions about how stupid and unfair things are and how little management knows or cares about workers. They may get heated and argumentative, or they may get cold, uncaring, and manipulative. Either way, many people complain enough that supervisors avoid assigning them to these tedious or irritating workstations, meaning the non-complainers get stuck there instead. You do have to look out for yourself in life, but is there a better way to do it that lets you help look out for others at the same time? I'm here to offer you a fourth tactic, which is more of a strategy. It helps you keep your sanity, be nicer to those around you, do a better job in return for your paycheck, and still use your extra mental capacity to be proactive and productive for yourself and your personal life while you are working. First off, you do have to learn the job and then emotionally detach. I mean, set yourself on track to do the best you reasonably can without physically hurting your muscles or joints. And if you know that the situation asks too much of anyone, you decide to not be fearful or angry if your best isn't good enough in the boss's opinion. If you are truly doing well, and that isn't good enough for the boss, then the boss isn't good enough for you. There are other jobs to be had. So then, once you know what you're doing and are in a functional routine, you need to think less about the work and have excess mental capacity. This is where you have to choose not to waste your thought time. You need to get your mind into a positive motion routine. Here are some positive ways to engage your mind while you work. Number 1, talking. It's okay to acknowledge truths with coworkers, but catch yourself before it runs away into a negative rant that leaves you both feeling worse about your jobs. Use the exchange to find out more about your coworker as a personal human being. As you agree with them on the problems at work and find common ground on family matters, you build camaraderie and trust. But use that credit to encourage them into more positive, appreciative lines of thinking, leaving them a happier person for knowing you. Number 2, counterbalance your movements. Notice which muscles you're tensing, which way you're reaching or twisting, which ways you are stiff. Then invent counter-actions. For example, if you lift a lot of boxes up to your workstation, make sure one time to position so you lift and turn to your right, and the next time stand differently so you can lift and turn to your left. Another example, if you must stand or walk a lot, your knees and hips are going to be stiff, and only the forward and backward muscles will be exercised, becoming tired and crampy, while your sideways tensioning and twisting muscles become weak. So you'll want to periodically lift your leg out to the side, raise your knee to your chest, and kick yourself in the rear with your heel, all to activate the unused muscles so everything stays more balanced and healthy. You don't have to stop work for a full exercise routine if you add one of these movements in between things. You might slip these extra movements in when no one is looking, or go ahead and let them stare at you looking silly. When they ask and you explain why you're doing it, you'll hear all about their bad knees and backs, and they will probably wish you success. If you sit at a desk or a workstation all day, and you can't afford to get up and walk around and stretch, do things like lift your knee and kick your foot straight out forward. Lift your knee and swing your lower leg in circles. Shake your knees side to side. Keep your toes on the floor and alternately raise and lower your heels. Squeeze and release your glutamus maximus a few times. Pull your chin backward and lean your shoulders back over your chair. Now that you're talking positively with coworkers and taking care of your body, it's time to add in number 3. Try to make mental associations with things, to make them into jokes that lighten your mood, or at least to see them from a fresh perspective that may take your thinking down more useful paths. And this is where I'll use the rest of my story as an example. So there I was, speedily stacking thousands of extremely lightweight little plastic bottles in a honeycomb pattern, in boxes, as they came off the end of the conveyor belt, while watching the occasional bottle wobble and fall to the floor. And I was frequently walking around my workstation to pull out a bottle that had fallen over and plugged the path where all the bottles had to travel between some guardrails. Another coworker would walk over and clear the jammed bottle pathway whenever he had a chance. I could have growled and grumbled, and he probably would have commiserated, but then we would both have felt more miserable. Instead, I once commented imaginatively that the bottles looked like little penguins marching in a line and jumping off into the ocean at the end of the line, but sometimes one stumbles along the way. In my mind, I continued thinking about lines of people in history, such as prisoners of war, and destitute, hungry Americans walking to California during the Dust Bowl era. This put my immediate drudgery into perspective and reminded me how very much I have to be thankful for and appreciative of. But it also gave me numerous positive thought paths to follow forward. Instead of eating again on my last break, I could use my phone to start learning about whether or not organic farming practices are better for soil retention, which would be one more factor when deciding whether or not to buy organic at the grocery store on the way home from work. And instead of complaining about work when I got home, I could plan to ask my son what he knows about organics and best farming practices, which would be a positive conversation for him. The idea of everyone marching onward while some stumble and fall prompts compassion for anyone in my life who is struggling and how I could maybe be more helpful. Another time that my coworker cleared the line for me, I smiled and said that in my hands the bottles reminded me of marshmallows. So then my thoughts turned to wanting s'mores, but steering the thought train, I decided that craving s'mores wasn't going to help me be happy or healthy. So what did I want instead? I mean, what should I plan to make for dinner after work? I used a good amount of time then, remembering what foods were in the house that needed to be eaten and planning meals for the next couple of days. Not only what to cook, but also when I could prep which parts of the meal to be most time efficient. This meant that I did not waste any home time pondering what to cook, so I had more free time for something I actually enjoyed, or for a project that I needed to finish. This kind of thinking let me improve my outlook on life, accomplish personal mental tasks on company time, and gave me material for light-hearted comments to coworkers, all while still keeping my eyes attentive to all aspects of the job and my surroundings. All very positive things which made me a happier person. And you can do this too, making you and everyone around you happier. And here we are at the end of what I have to share for this week. So I hope you'll join me again next week for another drawing and a completely different story. Until then, check out my daily doodles that are only a minute long, right here on the same channel. Thank you for watching, and I'd be honored if you chose to recommend this channel to a friend. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.